Once she arrived in the US, she was faced with the task of learning a completely new language before she could pursue her formal education. Overcoming these challenges, Rose persevered through ESL and achieved her GED. After completing her GED, Rose continued to Calvin University, where she studied international development studies. Now, Rose is dedicated to her role as an immigrants' rights organizer and serves as the Refugee Congress delegate from Michigan. So, Rose, we're so excited to hear from you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm really grateful, and I want to say sorry last time I couldn't make it, but tonight I'm here. So I'm grateful to share my story. My voice is going to be a little rocky. I'm going to be a little bit emotional, but still I will continue to share. My name is Rose Mayan. As you heard, I am from South Sudan. I came to the US in 2006 with my family, with my mother and my nephew, who's an orphan to my late sister, and he was deported in 2018. My story started this way. I call myself as an immigrant. I came here as a refugee, and I lived in Michigan since then until now. And I graduated from Calvin University here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm currently working in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I became a refugee at the age of 2. I was born during the war and mostly grew up through it. I moved from city to city, state to state, country to country, and I found myself in the US. All this moving is because I'm trying to find a refuge and a place to call home. Unfortunately, even though I'm here in the US, I didn't find a home yet, because to me, home is not a physical thing. Home is a community where I belong. Home is an environment where I can share my voice, where I can be seen. But I'm still struggling with that. So my refugee activism was born out of pain, sorrow, and anger and confusion, and a lot of unanswered questions. When I was a child, facing a lot of challenges during the war, I had a lot of questions, and I did not get any of the answers. Traveling a lot, I always lose friends, learning new money, meeting new people along the way, losing people along the way, schooling. Sometimes there's no schooling. There's a lot of unanswered questions that I never get an answer to it until today. I'm still struggling with it. And that came with the activism, because I feel like there's something that should be done. And all these questions that I have, has to be answered. So I didn't figure out how to answer those questions. So I began to take an action. So first, when I came here, I'm already aware about racism. But then the first thing that caught my eye, actually, as a refugee, when we were welcomed by the resettlement agency, we had family from Somalia, we had family from Iraq, and then my family from South Sudan. By then, it was Sudan. And right at that moment, I started seeing how we were all treated differently. We are all refugees, but when it comes to status, Black people are always on the list. So that kind of caught my attention. I didn't ask any question, but I was just sitting down watching, like, how is this thing going to end? Another question, another unanswered question. So this led me to come up with an action, and those actions are rooted basically in the principle of compassion, sympathy, and empathy, and belief that refugees deserve protection and assistance in their time of need. Because right at that moment, this Somali family needed help with transportation. I was fortunate because my older brother was here. This Iraqi family was stuck. They needed the language because they speak Arabic. And right there, I knew, like, okay, even though we are all refugees from different backgrounds, we have almost similar needs. So I have worked in my community, starting with translation with my little English in courts, in school, hospitals, and workplaces when they have interviews. I joined organizations that volunteer to advocate for refugees' rights by raising awareness about refugees' issues such as housing, transportation, language barrier, access to technology, and driving. Just simple as driving, that we can think like, somebody's from high school, 14, they're learning how to drive. Refugees are struggling with that. So I started to talk to organizations and involving churches and other community leaders to help out, actually to just volunteer their timing to help refugees to learn how to drive. Advocating for more ESL classes because when I came, I only had like 4 hours a week, and I feel like it's not enough for me. Then I push for at least 12, at least 20 hours a week if it's possible, because I know these families also have works. I have worked with literacy center where we can have classes 5 days in their place, or we can have tutors. Those tutors can meet with these refugees in their place of worship or library, or mostly for those who don't even have rights at all. These students can even come to their own homes to make sure that these people are getting the help that they needed. Encouraging volunteers from different communities also to teach English, especially the retired elderly from churches, because some of them are teachers. And teaching English is not that bad, even if you're not a teacher. At least if you speak it, you will be able to help. So I'm currently working as an immigrant rights organizer. My organization is engaged in some political actions such as protests, rallies, and lobbying to influence government policies related to refugee and immigration policies, just like Representative was just talking about immigration policies that are just, and as we know, this is an issue that we're dealing with day to day, that we want to make sure that immigrants are treated right, refugees are treated right, wherever they're coming from, they should be treated right, because even when they come to the US, they're dealing with housing issues. And even right now, I'm working with the Office of Refugee Resettlement and the Office of Global Michigan, because most of the refugees that are being brought in right now, especially from the African continent, their houses are far away from where we are living. And then they're given jobs the opposite direction. So for somebody to go to work, and instead of going for an hour, it will take them 2 hours or 3 hours just to catch buses in between, and this is not all right. And also, their children are enrolling in schools that lowly funded, and a lot of those areas are abandoned places. They have houses that have lead. They have issues with landlords because of the language barrier. Sometimes rents are being increased. They don't know anything. Engaging in buying cars when they don't need them right now. So we are talking with these officers to make sure that trainings are highly increased when they're coming in, because they don't know during orientation. They just prepare them for 3 months, and those trainings are not going to help them for long term. If you're coming to the US to live here for the rest of your life, 3 months is not enough. So we are pushing with the Office of Global Michigan to make sure that refugees are receiving trainings as much until from 3 months all the way to 5 years. As long as they're still connected to the resettlement agencies, those trainings should be continued so that at least they'll be equipped to know that in this country, there's a lot of laws that they're dealing with. And example of it, we lost a young man last year killed by the police. When he was stopped, he did not know. He ran. He thought this is like the way you do it back home in Africa. When the police stop you, you should run, which is something that he didn't know. And as a result, he ended up losing his life. So we're doing like Know Your Rights event, and trying to do policing with the community activities to make sure that we bridge the gap between the police and the community, teaching the police about cultural differences, and also teaching our community about the policies here in the United States. So I live in Michigan, like I mentioned earlier. Michigan is the home to a diverse population of refugees who have come from various parts of the world to seek safety, security, and a new start that leads to solidarity. So across the state, refugees have faced and overcome diversity, often with the support of local organizations like our organization, the settlement agencies, and churches. These organizations built that background that is very strong and is welcoming to the refugees. So the stories of refugees in Michigan during COVID pandemic highlighted both the challenges they faced and the resilience they demonstrate. So the pandemic also caused a lot of distractions around the community here, language barrier, access to technology, and a lot of them lost jobs. Some of them were laid off because of pandemic, and they did not know how to apply for food assistance, how to apply for all these government assistance. So we recruit a group that can come together to make sure that they have all the community support they need, they have access to healthcare, and culturally sensitive services, for the vulnerable population. So we ensure that their well-being during the time of crisis. So we provide masks during the pandemic, and then we make sure that all these brochures are translated in the indigenous languages so that they will be able to understand. And if they don't, we also connected them with community volunteers that are on the phone 24 hours. We exchange like 3 shifts. Like at least if anybody has a question, we encourage them to make sure that they're vaccinated, to make sure that they maintain social distances. So this is what we are doing here in Michigan. So today's refugee story serves as a testament to all of us. It's a testament of resilience and the strength of our stories and their capacity to rebuild their lives in the new land they're calling home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose. I know it was not easy to share that story, and I appreciate you sharing. And I also appreciate your point about not all refugees, not all immigrants are the same, and we need to act in solidarity to support our Black refugees and Black immigrants. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.